Secret societies have existed among all people, savage and civilized, since the beginning of recorded history. It is beyond question that the secret societies of all ages have exercised a considerable degree of political influence.
It is not our purpose to spend too much time on this particular order of Freemasonry, the Illuminati, but we want to spend enough time so that you understand how it worked, what its purposes were, and how it affects us today. Because it's still with us today. I think at one time or another we've all questioned as to whether all that we see and are experiencing in our world has some sort of a rational plan behind it. Because we understand now that both the Republican and the Democratic Party in our country are basically run by the same people. The same money finances both sides. We now know, of course, through the work of many historians who have spent their life working on research to show us that both sides of world conflicts have always been financed by the same people. And as I've said before, there seems to be a method to the madness going on in the world. We know, of course, that we cannot depend on our leaders. Our leaders are misleaders. There is a science that they're following. They have their own agenda, and it doesn't include you.
זה הזמן לזעוק את הזעקה שבוערת בליבנו.
רק אנחנו מחליטים בשביל עצמנו.
הלב והמוח ביחד זה כוח.
זעקת השכמה.
The cross on the British flag, the Red Cross, that also is a Masonic institution.
Among some of the most influential of the Founding Fathers, we find secret societies which have remained in the shadows over the years, wielding their power and authority in American politics, culture, and religion. It's always been the goal of the secret orders to keep and maintain the ancient occult teachings and rituals while influencing the politics, religion, and culture of their day. Historically, the secret societies have seemed to always control the zeitgeist, or the spirit of the time.
Secret societies are groups of individuals who share commonalities, goals and visions of a united humanistic future of esoteric enlightenment. In other words, these groups are formed with a specific agenda of ecumenical unification of all faiths and creeds, with a common goal of global order. This once again projects the American doctrine, e pluribus unum, or out of many comes one, the land where all paths lead to God. We're told that we are one nation under God, but as we see, this is a nation of many faiths, and the God declared by the founders was clearly not the God of the Bible.
The God mentioned by the founders, and even referenced on our currency, is none other than the universal great architect entity, which high-level Freemasons reveal is actually Lucifer, the light bearer, the serpent god. This God accepts all faiths besides true biblical Christianity, and goes by many names across the cultures. This is another brick in the wall of understanding secret societies and how they are able to coexist as a large body, even having factions within.
The most notable secret societies that have influenced the occult New World system include the Freemasons, Traditional Rosicrucians, Hellfire Club, Skull and Bones, Ancient Mystical Order Rosicrucis, Ordo Templi Orientis, the Golden Dawn, and the Jesuits.
Seeing that America is the philosophical empire foretold by occultists of the ancient world, coupled with the fact that global decisions for order always have to be cleared via American politics and force, it is no surprise that politicians and corporate leaders from various secret societies, both foreign and domestic, all meet together for a blood sacrifice in a grove of biblical proportions every summer in California. Time would not allow for individual breakdown of every secret society in attendance. However, the common goals of these powerful groups are boldly plotted at this annual sacrificial gathering in the Redwood Forest. We're dealing with the United Nations of secret societies, if you will.
The cross on the British flag, the Red Cross, that also is a Masonic institution.
Bohemian Grove is where the walls come down between the societies, and the principalities emerge from the other side, as some of the most powerful world leaders devise the biggest moves and changes that will take place on the world scene.
Most people have heard about the Bohemian Grove, which is a yearly event that takes place in the Redwoods of Northern California. What they don't know is that the Bohemian Grove is an adjunct to the Bohemian Club, which is in downtown San Francisco. Every year, they take this statue out of the Bohemian Club, a statue of St. John of Nepomuk from Czechoslovakia. Bohemia is in Czechoslovakia. They take this statue of St. John of Nepomuk, and every year they transport him from San Francisco to the Bohemian Grove up in Northern California.
St. John of Nepomuk is considered the patron saint of Bohemian Grove, and this particular statue of him that makes a pilgrimage every year depicts Nepomuk making the occult sign of silence, covering his mouth. Historically, Nepomuk suffered death for keeping the queen's confessional secrets. This level of commitment is a standard in secret societies. Death before disclosure of secrets. Being a member or a guest even at the Grove entails taking an oath of silence, and this is clearly portrayed in the statue of their patron saint.
The Bohemian Grove was a creation of members of the Bohemian Club that had hundreds of acres in the Redwood Forest of Northern California, and they would invite the greats and the near greats from across the world, all men, to these camps that were established there in the summer for several weeks. And they would meet together secretly, and they would brief one another about their government activities, the types of policies that were being worked from one government to another. We had former presidents that went there. And it's interesting, I know Colin Powell's emails after having gone to the Bohemian Grove were released by WikiLeaks, and he talked about this thing that they did on abandoning care. What it was, they had this giant owl that would be set up in the woods, and everybody would come and they would cast all their cares on this owl as a ritual of sorts. Now, you can dismiss that as silliness. These are grown men, most of them in their 50s, 60s, and so forth, but very influential people. And they did these sorts of things that have been fairly widely reported. And yet, I would argue that the decisions often made there, or the discussions made there, the camaraderie that was developed, would ultimately find its way into policy or financial decisions by governments and industry, because you had Hollywood magnates and you had the likes of the Googles of the world, and then of course all the way up to presidents and other countries. A bizarre secret society of sorts.
זעקת, השכמה.
Conflicts require money and cooperation. World conflicts require world banks, International Monetary Fund. Professional groups all have fraternal orders, doctors, attorneys, etc., have their own specific fraternal orders. In the banking world, it is the same way. They have a fraternal order. In politics, there is a fraternal order. However, we're not supposed to know anything about that because that's not our business. That fraternal order in politics and banking has been known for many years by those in the inside. It has been referred to by different names, different times, in different countries. The best overall name that we can give to this fraternal order, which is running our country, politics, monetary, is Freemasonry.
Bohemian Grove was astounding when I first heard about it. I never heard about it at all during the 80s or the first part of the 90s. So we have somebody that was coming to our offices seeking help, coming out of really, really dark satanic rituals and abuse and so forth. And one day they asked me, have you heard of Bohemian Grove? I said, no. They sat down and they wanted sheets of paper, big sheets of paper. They began to draw cabins and occult symbols, trees. Then they drew this like little lake area and then a big owl, and they had people in hooded robes throwing a man into the fires that showed people sitting across. So they began to draw all these pictures. They actually handed me a necklace with an owl that they said they wore in the 60s when they were there. So as they explained it to me in the early 90s, it was a place where political, military, media, and wealthy elite people were brought. Massive sexual decadence, sexual ritual, sexual exploitation. Kids, girls, boys were used. Some of it for bribing. So Bohemian Grove came out later on with the Alex Jones video. As soon as I saw it, I went back to the paperwork, went back to the individual that first shared it with us. This is on the Russian River in California. It's been there for a long time. It's connected to Skull and Bones. It's connected to other darker oriented, we'd call it secret society. But Bohemian Grove is literally no different than a high place of the Old Testament. It is an encampment for an idol of an actual demonic presence. That's what every idol is a representation of the actual presence of a territorial or a particular demon god, small g, that would rule a tribe or a family or rule a nation even. And that would be the image. So we have the owl there. They do a number of preparatory rituals, which is true among left-hand pathers, that this whole ritual leading up to this, it's one of many that is done, but before they can ever do it, and they never do it without acquiring, inviting, somehow they bring in the world elite. So we all know the stories now, even from the Bohemian Grove Club in San Francisco, the names that have been put out, the lists that have been out, many, many other pictures are out now, old black and white pictures are out. It's been there a long time.
It's a place where you can come as Democrat or Republican. You can come as a financier. You can come as the CEO of major corporations and major companies. It's a place for networking. It's a place where you can come and, without the camera of the media on you, can discuss policy. And really what it boils down to is relationship building. Relationship building across all lines. It's that rubbing shoulders. It's that coming together. It's that place where they inspire one another and move agendas and ideas forward without the prying eyes of media, without the prying eyes of the public.
One of the most damning indictments of the realities of this Luciferian gathering, made up of all secret societies and political parties, celebrities and global leaders, would be the David Gergen Street interview. Gergen was the presidential advisor to Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton, and a longtime member of the Grove. This literally validates not only the existence of the Grove and the rituals, but also depicts the code of secrecy taken by its members.
I read a Washington Times article many years ago where you had a comment about the organization, and then now it's been in the Wall Street Journal, it's been in a lot of different newspapers, and that's the Bohemian Grove. And back in, 1996, when you joined as a Clinton advisor, the Republicans were criticizing you, what about Bohemian Grove? And then you countered them by saying, hey, I don't run around in the woods naked. What did that mean? Here is the before-mentioned Washington Times article where he said, I didn't run around naked like they do.
Follow the white rabbit. At the heart of this psyop is Q, a government insider who will give you advance warning about major events, like the arrest of Hillary and deep state leaders, which never happened, and the end of the Democratic Party in 2018, who actually went on to win the House that year. And if years of fake predictions start to get you down, don't worry. Trust the plan. The best part of this psyop is you'll believe you're in a psyop, except that's not the psyop you're actually in, but the psyop where we let you think you're in a psyop. Psyopception. All we have to do is tell Il Duce to say tip top next to a white rabbit. Q-proof. Joining QAnon is easy because at its core there are some truths. Like the media really does lie to you. There really are powerful predators out there, and there really is a global pedophile ring that ritually abuses kids. But as you follow Q's droppings, you'll gradually LARP yourself deep into the rabbit's rectum, where you'll find others who yearn to fight injustice just like you. The 5G crew, the Plandemic crowd, the FEMA camps, and chemtrail folks too. All LARP together into a single LARP we can control. Where we LARP one, we LARP all. In exchange for all this entertainment and newfound sense of purpose, all we ask for in return is your help. No, you fucking idiots, not to arrest Hillary. And rioters shut down the recount of the 2000 election. Among those rioters was this fuckwit, the same one who is now urging us to declare martial law should we lose the election. And among the lawyers who helped to stop the recount was the same one we're pushing hard to appoint to the Supreme Court right now. Coincidence? Follow the white fuckwit. All this should alarm patriots. Except Q has convinced patriots, even the guy who spent decades warning you about the police stated martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. The police stated martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. That martial law is now a good thing.
I don't know what quote you're referring to. I'm not aware of any quote like that. Listen, I am a happy member of the Bohemian Grove. I like the folks who come there, and it's really inappropriate for me to talk about the group beyond that. Thank you.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Bohemia, we thank thee for thy adoration.
Have you been there for the ceremony with the cremation of care?
Frankly, I don't think that's something I need to talk to you about.
Really?
That's right.
Well, I'm Alex Jones, and I snuck in there in 2000. I'm the guy that blew it wide open and got the video. It's been on national TV.
Well, I disrespect you for that.
You do?
I do.
But it's a lot of big public officials going in there. Don't we deserve to know?
You took I don't know anything about you, and I don't know anything about your film. But if you go in there with an understanding, you violated that understanding by releasing that film, and I don't respect you for that.
Really? But we have public officials.
I'm sorry. You took an understanding when you went in there that you would not do that film, and did you have an understanding when you went in there?
The police stated martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. That martial law is now a good thing.
No.
Did you crash it?
Yes.
Yeah, and it has no trespassing signs there too, doesn't it?
No, they put them up after.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir. I've been there before. I know what the circumstances are, and I'm sorry you violated the understanding. That was not a gentlemanly thing to do.
But what about the ritual? Is the ritual gentlemanly?
Sir, everything I don't owe you this comment.
I know. I appreciate
it. This is what's called ambush journalism, and I disrespect you for that as well. So thank you and goodbye.
Been in the ritual?
It's none of your damn business.
Oh,
that's right. Listen. You go around and make understandings with people and violate them. You ambush people on the streets, and that's inappropriate form of journalism. If you wish to practice that, that's fine, but don't ask others to respect you for it. If you want to, you can do. You're free American, like anything you want. If you want to be uncivil and rude and ungentlemanly, that's up to you. But don't expect the rest of us to say, "Oh well, you're
there, Mr. Gergen."
I'm sorry, nobody sets policy in there. We try to be gentlemen, and obviously, you don't belong there.
Weaving spiders come out here.
Coincidence? Follow the white fuckwit. All this should alarm patriots. Except Q has convinced patriots, even the guy who spent decades warning you about the police stated martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. The police stated martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. Good thing. Good thing.
The biggest issue is the ritual itself. People see the ritual, they hear the stuff. It's almost like a massive drama that's going on. It looks like a big dramatic thing when you hear the voice of the speaker, the person behind speaking about the cremation of care and be gone, and he screams all these things out. And then the audience of presidents and senators and the world's elite all begin to clap. First we have to ask, who has the clout to bring world leaders, presidents, kings of the earth, media moguls, military generals? Who has the power to bring those people together in one location?
זעקת, השכמה.
Our country, like so many before us, and like so many after us, was in fact founded by Freemasons. Freemasonry has played a part in almost every government ever founded in this world. It is in operation today throughout the world. We want to establish first that what we're not talking about is blue masonry or the Masonic lodges in your hometown. We're not talking about the Freemasons that live across the street from you. We're talking about a worldwide fraternal organization that is powerful enough, old enough, and wise enough to operate behind all governments in the world, behind fraternal institutions, monetary systems in the world, and yes, they are in fact connected. For instance, the idea that our country was founded by so many Freemasons and Rosicrucians, among others.
Why would anybody, any human being, even if it was just a fake, mock human sacrifice, who would go to that? So even if it was mock, even if it was fake, why would world leaders, powerful people, go there and applaud at the end if it was fake? Here's what I believe without question about Bohemian Grove. Some are there because they've been invited to be influenced. They're unwitting to what's going on. Many, if not most, are witting to what's going on. They know what's happening. When we found out the reasons for the ritual at Bohemian Grove, the human sacrifice that would go on, it's not Moloch, but it goes back to Sumer, more likely to Semiramis and the most ancient of the ancient gods, small g, and the ritual of a human to be offered. So that in a ritual, as I said earlier, when a ritual is done, it's done as inspired by that side to open a doorway, to cause a release, to grant the door, to open the door so they can come through. So the most important thing is not only who gets them to come, who designs this to be done, and what's the real reason? The real reason is similar to Revelation 16. When out of the mouth of the false prophet, the beast, the Antichrist, and the dragon, come spirits sent to the kings of the earth to supernaturally gather them, to move them. You have a massively global scale, powerful ritual being done so that when that human being is thrown, and probably alive, maybe drugged, but probably alive, thrown into the fires, burned alive, then the demons that have been right at the doorway, all of a sudden the doorway, the curtains come down, and that presence by target goes to the audience there. So in the real Luciferians, the reason they're doing this, summoning spirits, sending it on to the audience, world leaders, for influence, for inspiration, for preparation, to move them in one direction. It is an astounding ritual. How could it be happening on U.S. soil? It's a global class ritual. It's a powerful high place sitting on U.S. soil.
Bohemian Grove is a high holy place for the shadow government and has been since its infancy. The occultist movers and shakers of the world have long found demonically charged power and comfort in the blood rituals amidst this brotherhood of brotherhoods. What was once considered a conspiracy theory, this shadow government, has now broken out into the mainstream under a different name, possibly to soften the blow of its exposure. This long-standing cabal of decision makers and policy setters, the hand behind the false flag terror attacks and sponsor of international terrorist groups, the shadow government is now known as the Deep State.
זעקת, השכמה.
There exists in the world today, and has existed for thousands of years, a body of enlightened humans united in what might be termed an order of the quest. It is composed of those whose intellectual and spiritual perceptions have revealed to them that civilization has a secret destiny. The outcome of this secret destiny is a world order ruled by a king with supernatural powers. This king was descended of a divine race, that is, he belonged to the order of the illumined. But those who come to a state of wisdom then belong to a family of heroes, perfected human beings.
The cross on the British flag, the Red Cross, that also is a Masonic institution.
The deep state is the political means to advance the agenda of secret societies. It's the hand that rocks the cradle, per se. It's the arm that gets things done. Controlling the narrative, both politically and culturally, the deep state is the puppet master, regardless of the perceived party dominance. It enacts policies, it funds terror, creates social uprising, and even tailors the mainstream media, all with the goal of advancing the nations towards the one world system. Literally speaking, they are constructing the beast system.
It's really a clandestine type of network of people that are undercutting government. It really dates back to Mustafa Ataturk, the Turkish leader of 1923, when he used clandestine operations within government to preserve his own government. And more recently, of course, in this country, starting really during the election of 2016 for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, we began to see evidence of what we've seen overseas in Turkey and other countries, and that is specifically a shadow government. But ultimately, I really see three levels. The first level of the deeper state is the political class, those people that we send to Washington for the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives. And then, of course, you have the people that work for the federal government, for the president and his administration, the bureaucracy. If you listen to the likes of Bernie Sanders, the independent that ran for president, if you listen to Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas, or you listen to former President Jimmy Carter, they call it an oligarchy. In other words, only a handful of people truly run the government. They truly run the political establishment in Washington. And they operate based upon who's the biggest donor to their particular interests. So they refer to it as an oligarchy, a government of a few. Now, when you look at the bureaucracy, the people that are working for these political people in the first level, the bureaucracy is representative of, in some cases, people that truly try to run things from behind the scenes.
Many people are finally waking up to the existence of the deep state after years of calling it a conspiracy theory. But what most people don't realize is that this deep state, this shadow American government, goes all the way back to the very first president, George Washington, and the Founding Fathers.
If you go back to the very beginning of our country, the founders, there were 55 of those that attended the Constitutional Convention. The windows were locked, by the way, at the time when they were writing our Declaration and then our Constitution. Why? They didn't want the average citizen to listen in on the proceedings. It's because they were the elite at the time. They were an oligarchy, people that were unelected, people that were wealthy, mostly lawyers, that were really going to put together a government that, was going to give us some liberty from the British and so forth, but a government that ultimately was very similar to what we found and left behind in Great Britain. It was bicameral, in other words, a Senate that was really like the House of Lords. Initially, it wasn't going to be voted down by the people. House of Representatives was really like the House of Commons, and it was organized accordingly. As you go through the litany of things that they put together, it was truly an oligarchy, though it gave us some liberty. So you have that level. Then you have the people that are behind the scenes, what I call the second layer. Second layer are the influencers, the deep-pocketed wealthy people, the George Soroses of the world that donate $12 billion to non-government organizations that indeed influence our political class and our federal bureaucracy. Clearly, you have lobbyists, and there are thousands of them in Washington. You have non-government organizations that are so-called think tanks that produce papers, and academia that produce papers that are used to influence politicians and the bureaucracies on the policies that they want. Are they really reflecting the will of the American people? In many cases, I'd argue no, they aren't. You have secret societies. Now, I know that a lot of people don't quite understand and appreciate these groups. The Bilderberger group, of course, they're an influence of great proportions. They, in 1991, recruited Bill Clinton, a lonely governor from the obscure state of Arkansas, raised him up, gave him a lot of money, and gave him a message, and that message was about trade. It was NAFTA, and he sold NAFTA as his agenda, and of course he sold a lot of other bad ideas as well. The Bilderbergers also raised up Barack Obama, gave him money, gave him media attention, and eventually the nomination from virtually nowhere. And of course he ruled with a very progressive agenda, which is what most of these globalists, most of these progressives have in mind at the second level, second layer. And then, of course, you have foreign governments that are part of the second layer of the deeper state. The Saudis have spent hundreds of millions of dollars lobbying Washington for its own political purposes.
זעקת, השכמה.
There are many, many others that are involved in this political influence class that, is involved with Washington.
Before we get into what empowers the deep state, or the final level, we have to understand that their agenda is globalism. Globalism is described clearly in Daniel chapter 7 and Revelation 13 as the world system of which the Antichrist will take the reins. We're dealing with the indisputable objective of the secret societies, which further explains why the deep state is run by these very secret societies. Their aim is to build a Luciferian world kingdom, and they use democracy to spread their ideology upon the world stage.
זעקת, השכמה.
The bait that was laid by Adam Weishaupt for control of peoples was a very old and tried project. It was called democracy, a people's democracy. Adam Weishaupt, like many others before him, understood that democracy has never worked, is not working now, and never will work. Basically because of the reason that people, while they could be and are the power of any government, the people are always the power of a government. And that on the surface, democracy seems to be the best of all possible worlds. Democracy is a very bad form of government because the people can be misled. Because democracy means, it comes from the word demos, meaning mob. A mob in the street is a demos. Demosocracy, ocracy meaning rule. Demosocracy or democracy means mob rule. You might say that true democracy is like 35 whites hanging one black. That's democracy, the rule of the mob. Now when we put it into more Americanized political terms, it's the rule of the people. And while that may sound good in print, the founders of democracy in our modern day form realized that the people can be manipulated into accepting whatever they want the people to accept.
The World Federalist Association is the longest running pro-world government lobby group in the United States. It didn't start out under that name. Back in the 1940s and 1950s, it started out as the United World Federalists. Today it goes under a different name, Citizens for Global Solutions. But all throughout its history, the World Federalist Association and its international umbrella group, the World Federalist Movement, have been working towards the idea of a global government, a world government, a new world order. That is the language that comes through. Back in the year 2000, I attended the United Nations Millennium Forum. I went as an independent accredited expert. However, because I was a member of the World Federalist Association at that time, I'd attended a number of meetings, a number of their events, and had been given a membership by the organization. I quickly discovered when I was at the United Nations Millennium Forum that we were running the show, that the World Federalist Movement was running the United Nations event that I was attending. I was part of Subgroup 6. Subgroup 6 was about restructuring world order. And so for the course of the week, we had panels and workshops and lectures and sessions, planning sessions, on things like creating a global taxation regime, developing an international military and police force, setting up a global parliamentary assembly. This is a very big idea. Because what we were doing was we were discussing the framework, the skeletal framework for literally a form of world government. What is a world government? A world judicial system, a world where we develop international law, a world military and police presence, a world executive. George Bush Sr. called it a new world order. That language, he used that language all the time. In fact, he was really well known for that phraseology. A lot of people even thought he was the one that brought up the term, that he somehow invented it. No, he was using an old phrase. Ronald Reagan talked about a new world order. Jimmy Carter talked about a new world order. FDR talked about a new world order. Back in the 1940s, the birth of various World Federalist organizations, including the United World Federalists, even churches were talking about world order. There were church crusades on world order. The Baptists were having crusades on world order. The Methodists were. They were doing letter writing campaigns to America's politicians, saying, as you guys work through the idea of a United Nations, this is in the mid-1940s, the later part of World War II, you need to develop this as an authoritative, effective, empowered international authority. In fact, you can go back even earlier than that. You can go to World War I. Nicholas Murray Butler, the president of Columbia University, a man who could walk into the office of kings and prime ministers and presidents. He was Mr. International during World War I. He openly talked about a new world order. In fact, he described World War I as the destruction of the old order and a war for the new order. And what he described was the emergence of a world authority with an international judicial system, an international police presence, and world law.
זעקת, השכמה.
Professional groups all have fraternal orders. Doctors, attorneys, etc. have their own specific fraternal orders.
This really is the ultimate idea, the ultimate goal of the oneness of man, the oneness of the world. The phrase the New World Order doesn't end there. You can go beyond that, back all the way to 1873 with the founder of the Baha'i faith talking about the necessity of a new world order. And that new world order would have a world judicial system. It would even have a world city, a world headquarters. It would truly be one world. This big idea, this dream, has pulsed and beat within the heart of American elites for at least a number of generations. It goes back a long ways.
Globalism is about, to most people, it's about instant communication worldwide. It's about open markets around the world, open borders in many cases. But it's more nefarious than that. To me, it's about a religion of humanism, a religion that wants to reduce the Earth's population from the current 8 billion to 500 million, thanks to the likes of globalist Ted Turner. They believe that they're genetically predisposed to be the elite of the world and that they're going to run things. They trace themselves back to, of course, Friedrich Hegel, who is a 19th century German philosopher who believed in the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time. And they believed in, over time, that man's going to become perfect eventually. And as a result, they're going to be in charge of this perfect world. And it's, of course, going to be a one-world government run by them with far fewer of us than there are today. So the globalists are a pretty heinous group of people, and their ideology is typified by occultism, Luciferianism, and of course moral relativism. And so when I talk about the globalists, whoever they may be, the Kissingers, the David Rockefellers, the Hillarys, and so forth, I think psychopathic Luciferians, and that's their general ideology.
This is an idea that's been in circulation for a long time, and it goes into some pretty interesting areas. In 1951, the World Federalists met with Pope Pius XII, and in his speech to the World Federalists, talked to them in glowing terms that this was really a noble idea, that this was the direction that the world was going, and that your program, gentlemen, is a necessary program. This is needed. The Pope's address in 1965 to the United Nations was also about the necessity of a world authority, and how what we really need is the world to come together through the United Nations to have a final world authority. The idea of a world authority is really intriguing. When I was at the United Nations Millennium Forum, one of the documents that was in circulation was Transformation of the World. It was put together by the head of the World Assembly of Turkic Peoples. He suggested a world king, a type of authority figure, somebody who could pull the nations together into one. We need some kind of world coordinator. Small doubt that the world does need a civilized coordinator in international relations and in settling global problems. More than that, this coordinator must be a stabilizing factor, actually, the last-ditch authority on the earth. He must win confidence of each man and each nation. People must be stark sure that this coordinator would solve any problem in a just and humane way, and one should be sure that in him he would find understanding and sympathy, that he would treat any nation as his own son, and that he is indeed the last resort. And the man should convince his terrestrial brothers therein by his practical deeds. ... Can the world community do without a coordinator? Definitely not.
This idea of uniting the world under one king, it's an ancient idea. The first to attempt this was Nimrod at Babel. They had a one-world religious system, government, language, and of course a king. This system was a foreshadowing of the coming Antichrist system and was even fueled by the entities of their esoteric religion. These are believed to be the very religious practices that comprise what we call today the Babylonian mystery schools, which are the religious beliefs and practices behind the various secret societies that drive the deep state. It's really no surprise to see the same demonic entities that had fueled Nimrod's kingdom and motivated his actions alive and active today, fueling the deep state. The third level of the deep state is the unseen realm, or the spirit realm.
The third layer is what I call the unseen realm. This is the spiritual dimension. And of course, there are demonic players. There are spiritual activities that take place at the center of the universe, which I really believe happens to be in Washington, where the power is really focused, where money and great power is exercised, inevitably there's going to be a spiritual war. Ephesians 6 being the example where powers and principalities are very much in play. And so the third layer, the unseen realm, is constantly influencing the second layer, the influencers, and the first layer, the political class and the bureaucracy.
We ask ourselves, why do we fold the American flag in a triangle? And what does the pyramid or the triangle have to do with the American system of government on our dollar bill? If we remember that our Constitution was signed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is referred to as the Keystone State. The reason why Pennsylvania is the Keystone State, because the Freemasons that founded this country were members of the Scottish Rite, and in that Scottish Rite there is the Royal Arch degree. The Royal Arch degree, and of course the Royal Arch, if you do not know, was originally because of the sun coming over the horizon in the morning made the Royal Arch. The Royal Arch degree of Freemasons has been continually and ever busy throughout the world with their Freemasonic endeavors. The United States, as I said, founded in its Constitution in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania becoming the keystone of the Royal Arch. There is much concerning this material that we need to look at. Who are the Freemasons? Why are there emblems and symbols throughout the world on flags and emblems and symbols throughout the world on all sides of conflicts?
היום נפתח את העיניים, נתחיל לראות הכל נכון וגם נפסיק לבנות פחדים שבמסווה של ביטחון. ואם כבר יש פה ביטחון זה עוד יביא לניצחון. מהפכה שמחליפה את המגפון במיקרופון וכבר נמאס מדיכאון. נמאס לי מזכוכית מגדלת, להיות בודד בגלל שיש לי ארצ'י ונזלת. מציאות קשה בטון, הם רק שופכים על זה עוד מלט. טוב, בדקתי את האור, אבל אתם פותחים את הדלת.
העיניים נפתחות, אוזניים נפתחות, התדר הוא אתם, ביחד מאחדים כוחות, מגשרים מוחות, משדרים חידוש במדרכות, צעדי ענק לעבר העתיד, לוקחים מושכות, הידיים, נרים את הלחיים, למען דור שלם, כי המוזיקה היא מים לכולנו, ואם העולה מולנו, טרנספורם מתפורר, כל אחד יוצא המשורר, אור חדש יוצא. בואו נתעורר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נמהר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נמהר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נתעורר, בואו נתעורר. זה הזמן לזעוק את הזעקה שבוערת בליבנו.
רק אנחנו מחליטים בשביל עצמנו.
הלב והמוח, ביחד זה כוח.
זעקת, השכמה.
The cross on the British flag, the Red Cross, that also is a Masonic institution.